Hi everyone, this is Christina Barr and you're watching Black Tea News. Hi everyone, again this is Christina with Black Tea News. So glad for you to be here today. Wherever you're watching this, might be if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button and also getting notifications, because even though you subscribe, YouTube wants to make it extra difficult for you, and you have to also subscribe. And make sure that if you're on Facebook that you're getting notifications. Go ahead and share this around right now. Post it to your page, your personal page, your group pages, show it to friends and so on. We're going to talk about a couple different things today. We're going to be talking about Tucker Carlson has accused the government of spying on him, so that's pretty interesting. If you believe that is very far-fetched, then you must not have been politically active or just aware of life during the Obama-Biden administration, because they totally were spying on people. Or maybe you were just born like yesterday. There's so many people who are just kids, I guess, who are just sort of unaware of those times, and they only pay attention within the president of their immediate, 4 years, 8 years, and they don't remember life too much before Trump. It seems like a lot of people don't remember life before Trump. They act like there was no life before Trump. And some people, their life is Trump, and whether you hate him or you love him. So we're going to be touching on that. Also going to be talking about this turn with critical race theory and how it's in our military or trying to worm its way in. There was a hearing last week, and they tried to push back on it and justify it, and there were some people cheering on this general, and they saying he's a woke general, and even Trump, even though he appointed him, so I guess shame on him, but are saying it's a woke general. But I think there's more to it than that. They may sincerely want to study these things. People are talking about it. People are guilted in all kinds of ways to kind of go along with this, but there is a bigger agenda. And I think there's a pretty good article that I want to make you guys aware of as I talk about it. And also I'm going to touch on this TikToker who I posted a video, was unrelated to this, and it did pretty well on TikTok because the same day I posted it, turned out this big leftist account, Oliver, he actually got caught. It came out that he had sent some stuff and groomed some young girls. He is 18, I believe, and the girls were 13, 14. So he went ahead and there were screenshots and other things like that. He actually did an apology video that got out. I guess he did it and then it got out again. And he deleted everything from his social media. No, he's not on TikTok, Instagram. It's all gone. So people are just kind of learning about that. But I'm still going to talk about the video that I touched on. Because it came from Ben Shapiro, so I came for him. So we're going to talk about that and all sorts of things today. But before we jump into it, I am in the studio today. I do want to thank Brighter Michigan PAC for sponsoring. I am in their studio. They are not my employer or anything like that. So if you're upset, I don't care. They don't care. I'm here using the studio. And I will continue to be here using the studio as long as, they allow me to do so. So I appreciate that. They do a lot of good work. They have a nice charity event that they're doing for veterans not too soon from now, and I will be there that night and streaming some things. So if you want to follow them and see what we are going to do together, go ahead and follow their Facebook page. But again, I appreciate being here and in the lovely studio. And I also want to give a shout out because my baby sister, the youngest one, some of you may know that there's 7 kids in my family, 1 boy, 6 girls. The youngest, Tina, her birthday was last week. She was born 2 weeks after my birthday. We have years apart. I'm the 4th child. She's the 7th. So my birthday was on the 10th. Hers was on the 24th. I don't think I did a show that day, but I just wanted to do a shout out to my little baby sister. And so I'm just going to really quickly just go through her website. She's so talented. So this is Tina's Text Portraits and Designs. She makes all these little teeny tiny paintings. She has so many that she just does. And it's so funny because when she was painting in high school, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think this is going to work out for her. And then one day she just was like amazing. I'm like, Tina, why are you so good at this? And she told me that she was watching Bob Ross and she just kind of learned. Look at that one. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And so, she has a lot of these that are just kind of named after scriptures and stuff, but, that's her, like, home screen. She has all these little beautiful paintings, and she doesn't just have tiny ones. She has bigger size ones. She has one in her kitchen she's been working on for a while. I bought her this huge canvas, and, it's amazing, but it's just not finished yet. But let me show you, what she really got started with. Was text portraits, and so she will draw a picture of a person or a scene or something, and she'll do it just using a phrase. So this is of Jesus, and it's with the scripture John 3:16. Like if you look up close, that's what, and it's by, there are people who do like text portraits like this, but a lot of it is digital. She does it by hand. I think she was able to get the whole scripture out like one time, maybe on his, like, from here to his arm or something like that. But she does amazing work, and she does have, ones that are political. Like she has Abraham Lincoln on there, and she did do a Trump one. I know a lot of you out there like the president, obviously. And Martin Luther King. There's an Obama one there too. Reagan is very popular. That one took her a good while. Look at the detail in this, the level of detail. I said you can't call them wrinkles, call them wisdom crevices. So look how she did his wisdom crevices, just amazing. She did such a good job. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to just some of the stuff that she did. She's got superheroes. This Marilyn Monroe is really fantastic. Her Joker series is pretty popular. It the Clown. The Harry Potter one says The Boy Who Lived. Her Jensen Ackles is beautiful. Dean Cain actually has his portrait. Brandon Routh has his portrait. Who else? Who else have we met? There's one she did of Joseph Morgan, who played Klaus. He has that, I believe. So Grumpy Cat. So she's done some anime ones. So she's really talented. She does take commissions, and you see, she has a TARDIS down there too. She used to love Doctor Who before it got like super woke and stupid. The last thing I want to show, and I'm so sorry for taking so much time, but I love my sister. I really do. And it was her birthday, so just bear with me. She has books that she's written too, but I want to show you. She also customizes shoes. So she's got Pikachu meme face. She's got these cool Civil War shoes where it's like Captain America on one side and the shield. She's got these really cool Twilight Zone shoes. She did a commission, she did a Cardi B shoes, and she just paints on the shoes. Look at these. She made Super Kid shoes for my book that I wrote. So that's one side, and then she painted Felix. That's my character, and she gave that to my nephew. So Peppa Pig. She's got these really cool that's like inspired by like Batman the Returns, like Tim Burton ones. So those are like Catwoman shoes. And it's like hello there. Because she did it like glow in the dark paint. If you saw that movie, you'll understand that. Thank you, people who are watching me go through all of this. I know I'm taking more time than I meant to, but like I said, I just love my sister. These really cool Twilight Zone shoes. Look at that! Look at, she painted all that on the shoes. She did all that work. So, and these Miles Morales shoes, those she gets compliments on this all the time. So. I just wanted to brag on my baby sister. She's so talented. She's so loving and caring, and she's weird. She is so weird, just to be frank with you. She is weird. But And she's a preacher like all of us too. So that's me bragging on my baby sister. Thank you for putting up with that. And I'm going to go into my content. But please check out her stuff, Tina's Text Portraits and Designs. It's tinastextportraits.com is the website. I love her. I appreciate her. Of course, I want you guys to also support blackteennews.com, and I'm not going to do a big thing through my merchandise because I want to get the content. You can look down there on how you can donate. You go to the website and do that. Thank you, everyone who supports. But let's jump into the content of the day. So I want to start off with a meme. I'm trying to kind of do a thing where I'm doing segments now. My meme of the day comes from Ben Shapiro. I know he doesn't really need any sort of elevation, but I was through his page, and he had this meme of like the Democrats shooting like the police support, and then saying, why would Republicans do this? So if you're unaware of what's going on right now, the Democrats are trying to pull a switch-a-rooney as far as with the support of who's supporting the police, to defund the police, because obviously they knew that whole rhetoric isn't popular. Like, they were going with the wave, the trend wave that was on Twitter and all that other kind of stuff, what the activists were saying. But in real world, eventually the real world catches up to you. Eventually it all catches up to common sense, and you have to be held accountable. So they find out eventually. By the way, if you have any memes that you think should be featured on memes of the day, because this is going to be a thing, you can send them to my Twitter account. Just at me on Twitter, or you could just kind of paste them in the comments here, and I will include them if they're good. They got to be good to discuss them. They got to be good. If they don't make the team, or if I'm not interested in talking about it, if I don't pick it up, doesn't mean they're bad. It's just not what I want to talk about today. So the Democrat, but this is timely because the Democrats are really trying to convince the American people that as the Republicans are like, no, we don't like the police, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We have memories, right? Correct? Like, we remember people going around saying defund the police. We know it's like Democrat, city councils and so on who got together and decided to actually defund the police, like strip them of their budgets and stuff. There were activists going around saying that we need to totally dismantle it. The mayor of Minneapolis just got shamed by a crowd because he's like, yeah, we need to reform, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, but are you going to get rid of it? And he's like, total disbandment. He's like, I can't do that. And so they like made him do like a walk of shame. I don't have that uploaded. Otherwise I would play it. It is like legitimately, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it is legitimately the most pathetic thing I have seen in politics. I mean, the most pathetic thing with these people booing him and making him, he's a mayor of the city. And these people he just left with his, head hanging down. And I hadn't really followed him or seen much of him. So, and he had a mask on. I'm like, is this like a child? Like, he seemed like a 17-year-old kid. I'm like, this was a grown man who they just shamed into leaving. It was incredible. But that's totally their thing. As a matter of fact, Ilhan Omar tweeted something today about how, cities need to, like, there's no reform for the police. And that's really their thing. But Jen Psaki tried to, like, throw out there last week, like, oh, you might say the Republicans are against defunding the police. So Peter Doocy, God bless him, he's like the only real journalist in the room. Kind of like how, I know they try to think that Doocy is like what Acosta was to Trump, but Acosta was just an insufferable fool. Doocy's actually trying to ask some poignant questions in a room full of sycophants. And so here's the rare moment of journalism during the press briefing.
Something one of the advisors said this weekend, Cedric Richmond, he said, Republicans defunded the police by not supporting the American Rescue Plan. But how is it that is an argument to be made when the president never mentioned needing money for police to stop a crime wave when he was selling the American Rescue Plan?
Well, the president did mention that the American Rescue Plan, the state and local funding, something that was supported by the president, a lot of Democrats who supported and voted for the bill, could help ensure local cops were kept on the beat in communities across the country. As you know, didn't receive a single Republican vote. That funding has been used to keep cops on the beat.
But at the time, that was sold as these local police departments might have a pandemic-related budget shortfall, not we need to keep cops on the beat because there's a crime wave.
I think that any local department would argue that keeping cops on the beat to keep communities safe when they had to, because of budget shortfalls, fire police is something that helped them address crime in their local communities.
For those in the local communities, the White House's argument was the American Rescue Plan is going to be $1,400 checks. It's going to be vaccines, vaccinators. It's going to put us on the path to beating the virus. Not.
It did those things as well. It was a pretty good bill and piece of legislation.
Isn't that like one of those garbage things? She's got some spin on her, man. Just like just ridiculous. One of the most dishonest people ever. Just like up there in like politics, just lying through her teeth about how they pitched this bill, what they did. I mean, and I love how Peter Ducey's like, how is that an argument? Like, just like he's asking the tough questions Americans want to know. Like, how is that possible that you're making that case? Because Joe Biden on the campaign trail, he was doing an interview and they asked him about defunding the police, and he said yes to it, and in not so many words. I mean, I don't have the clip fired up. I can play it some other time, but I have put it in. I did a video. It was 50 reasons why not to vote for Joe Biden, which I did that in 2016 when I worked for the Michigan Republican Party on behalf of not on behalf of Hillary Clinton. It was trashing Hillary Clinton. I loved doing my job back then. So I did one for Joe Biden. And so I do have a clip in there of him, saying that, agreeing that he would defund the police. So people pretending like he wasn't a part of that, pandering to that movement, that's really ridiculous. There are receipts, ma'am. So I love Peter Ducey's question, but their reasoning is, well, they didn't support the American Rescue Plan, therefore Republicans aren't for funding police. It was a COVID relief bill, is what they pitched it as, but they included all this sort of garbage in it, and it was an unnecessary amount of money that they were spending. And we were like over the hump with the pandemic. A lot of the money wasn't even going toward COVID relief. So now they're like, well, that funded the police, and you like, that's not what the bill was for. Like, don't you even like using this logic now? Like, well, you weren't for our COVID relief bill, therefore you're against funding the police. It was supposed to be a COVID bill. Like, you're making the point that they were making before. Like, this bill isn't for COVID. And now she's like, well, it was an amazing bill. It did all these things. Like, if it was a bill for COVID, this is why we should have clean bills, but why they don't want clean bills. So they can play these games. And so what the bill did, it bailed out cities, states that had misused their money, their funds, whatever. They don't know how to budget, handle their state with their business or whatever. And they've gone back and used that money to bail them out of their stupidity. And those funds may have gone to policing. It's at their discretion to do what they want with those funds. Okay, I guess. And so they're like, because you didn't support this bill, this money that they're now using from that bill, you don't support police because you didn't support the bill. That's crazy. That's crazy. So any funds that they use from that bill that goes towards something positive, you can just say Republicans aren't for it. So if it like, if someone used that in California or something, if they use that money to like, or in New York or something, and it went toward like a pregnancy crisis center, which I doubt, would they start saying Republicans aren't for saving the babies and the mother? It's like, the logic is so insane, but this is just what they do. It's what they're accustomed to, and it's what they'll keep doing if we allow them to get away with. It's so ridiculous that she put it that way. It's not like it was a fund the police bill. It was the American Rescue Plan was supposed to be for COVID relief, and they included all of these projects, including bailing out people. And yes, they can use funds to use it toward their their cities to fund the police, but what, that's after these morons voted to not fund the police or didn't just do whatever with their budget correctly and wisely. So now you got to pin it on the Republicans. It's just beyond silly. But there are still Democrats who are going around cutting and slashing budgets for police. There was a video. It was a little too long for me to upload. But a police chief, he was just so upset because people were like, "What are you gonna do to like help the community?" He's like, I don't have the resources because these people keep cutting the budget. And behind him, he's like showing victims who have been hurt or either killed. And one of them was like someone that he knew that was close to him. And he looked like he was just breaking down. Like, we cannot do our job if you people keep just slashing our budget. And it's not just about the money either. Like, people are trying to remove certain protections that the police may have. And then also just the rhetoric, the hatred, the false narratives that people have, and the different attitudes. Like, why would you want to be a cop right now? It doesn't make any sense why you'd want to be a cop right now. So my heart goes out to the police officers. And they're in a really tough position because there's so many people who are just so idiotic and driven by ideology. And it's clear that the attitude toward police and then criminals, knowing that there's people out there who aren't going to catch them, that even if they are caught, there's so many left-wing or progressive, prosecutors or whoever who aren't going to want to see, justice be done. And their view of justice, like, well, you looted this person's store. Well, maybe we can come to some kind of agreement where maybe you can just, like, I don't know, sweep up the glass or something. And then after that, we can see if you're going to be punished. That's a real thing, by the way. That's a real thing. So we have so many people who don't want people to hold anyone accountable. Like, people who commit crime, they do make risk assessments just like everyone else in life. And they think, what are the risks versus the rewards? Can I do this without getting caught? If I get caught, what sort of penalty will there be? When I was in retail, they would train you, like, the best way to stop theft is to just be a good customer service person. And if you see someone who's like alone, maybe just make sure you're going up to them and watching them and like, hey, can I help you find something? There are people who are really good at stealing and they come in prepared, and next thing you know, they'll walk out with like 5 TVs. Like, how do they do it? I don't know. They're experts. They plan, plot, whatever. And we just have to watch out for them next time. But there's a lot of like little theft will happen when people, they're just given the opportunity to, and it's just kind of in their head, and they're like, no one's looking, I need this flash drive, should I pay for it? It's more than I want to pay. And they start wrestling with it, and no one's watching, and they think that there's a chance they can get away with it, and they take it out pop it out the package if they can, and boop, they're gone. And then with the first thing, they're like, I got away with this, can I get away with it next time? So there's a huge wave of crime that's popping up now, and the Democrats are just absolutely shameless about this. And for them to just try to paint it like the Republicans are trying to be the ones who are against police. This is why it's crazy to me that people don't believe that the party switch myth is a myth. Like, in real time, these people are trying to convince you that Republicans are the ones who are for like not funding the police. They are trying to convince you that it was them and not them. So why? I mean, people are trying to convince you, like the 1619 Project. They're trying to convince people that the founding was the day that the slaves came, and that's what America is rooted in. And the historians are like, no, that doesn't make any sense. This isn't true. This is full of errors. And they still get Pulitzer Prize awards and stuff for their writing on it, so they can be legit and considered legit and still push this ideology, even though it's historically false in every respective measure. But they'll keep pushing it and keep pushing these attitudes, and they'll keep trying to change the attitudes towards Juneteenth, where it was like a thing that was local, but really outside of that, Republicans were like, yeah, freedom and all those other, and now it's like people, they name it like the new Independence Day Act or something crazy like that, because they want people to be divided and be like, well, this is the day we were really free, so forget 4th of July or the real Independence Day. That's not my Independence Day. Like, to just keep creating this divide to make it, people feel so angry about America. Like, we're watching it in real time. So how can you possibly not think that after the Democrats were wrong with slavery, things like redlining, Jim Crow, segregation, internment camps, fighting against civil rights and stuff, and then they're finally like, oh gosh, we better like figure out a new strategy. And they did. Lyndon B. Johnson figured out a new strategy. Okay, but after that, how can you not believe that they got together and were like, oh man, we got to have a strategy. We got to control the narrative and introduce some kind of switch. Like, is it really so far-fetched when you can see people trying to control the narrative right now with different things? Trying and changing a whole entire history. They've done it before. They're doing it now. It's amazing. And it's not like they falsify, and it's not like there's any facts that are falsified as in like timelines in reality. Like, you can go back and look at people's voting records and see like, oh, a Democrat did this. Oh, a Democrat did this. Oh, a Democrat did. Oh my gosh, we're very close to the president, and the Democrat did this? Like, what? Like, where's the switch? I don't see the switch. Like, it looks like their ideology is pretty much like everyone's different, you know, like, you know, as a society, like conservative and liberal, those are more kind of I mean, we use those terms politically, but they are kind of relative, though. But as far as, like, the core of, like, what makes them tick and stuff, like, not a big change. I don't think so. I don't want to get on my soapbox about it totally today, but, you know, I don't think so. But when you can look at the voting record, like, there's a clear pattern there. So those data points aren't different. Right? The data is not different, but they have an interpretation of the data that has now become something that's so solidified. If I go on TikTok or somewhere and I said the party switch thing is a myth, so many people will get upset and start calling me a coon, Uncle Tom, whatever, and they're just like, no, it is. And then like, well, I've done research, and here's this thing I just looked up within like 5 minutes in the first article that I found to confirm my bias. And I'm like, prove it. I'm sorry, Junior, I've been looking into this for a while, and there's just no evidence there. Like, and just because you found a Vox article or something doesn't prove your point. It's just so amazing. It's so amazing. It's amazing they did that 1619 project, like, and now the defund the police thing just happened last year, and now Jen Psaki's like, well, it's the Republicans because they didn't support our COVID bill. Because they didn't support the COVID bill, they must hate the police. Like, what? Gosh, it's just crazy. So anyway, that whole rant was spawned from this meme. You know, so if anyone has any good recommendations for any sort of memes, you can send them to my Twitter account, or you can, you know what, now that I think about it, that's my wrong Twitter account. It's at True Black Tea. It's True Black Tea. That's my Twitter account. That's the only handle that's actually different. All my handles on like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, it's at Black Tea News. On Twitter, that one was taken, so it's at True Black Tea. At True Black Tea is my Twitter account. Sorry about that. But you can just post a meme in these comments, and I'll see them. Like, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and drop them, and I'll give it a good look, and perhaps your meme will be good enough or relevant enough. Whether it's relevant is actually more important, interesting, I guess, to what I want to talk about that day. You can be featured on Black Tea News. Okay, so let's move on. I want to talk about very briefly about this Tucker Carlson story. So he is accusing the Biden administration of spying on him. So this is a clip of a segment of a show when he addressed this.
Actual federal policy. The war on terror, now ongoing for 20 years, has pivoted in its aims. The war on terror is now being waged against American citizens, opponents of the regime. We saw this on display on January 6th. We told you a couple of weeks ago, based on language in publicly available indictments, that the FBI clearly had foreknowledge of the riot at the Capitol that day. And the agents we spoke to this weekend confirmed that is true. Quote, the FBI had sources in that crowd, confidential sources, snitches. That's 100% certain. But it's not just political protesters the government is spying on. Yesterday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government who reached out to warn us that the NSA, the National Security Agency, is monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take the show off the air. Now, that's a shocking claim, and ordinarily we'd be skeptical of it. It's illegal for the NSA to spy on American citizens. It's a crime. It's not a third world country. Things like that should not happen in America. But unfortunately, they do happen, and in this case, they did happen. The whistleblower, who is in a position to know, repeated back to us information about a story that we are working on that could have only come directly from my texts and emails. There's no other possible source for that information, period. The NSA captured that information without our knowledge and did it for political reasons. The Biden administration is spying on us. We have confirmed that. This morning we filed a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, asking for all information that the NSA and other agencies have gathered about this show. We did it mostly as a formality. We've also contacted the press office at both NSA and the FBI. We don't expect to hear much back. That's the way that usually goes. Only Congress can force transparency on the intelligence agencies, and they should do that immediately. Spying on opposition journalists is incompatible with democracy. If they are doing it to us, and again, they are definitely doing it to us, they are almost certainly doing it to others. This is scary, and we need to stop it right away.
So that's quite the accusation. For anyone out there who thinks, man, that sounds far-fetched, just go in your time machine before the years of Trump. Into the days when President Biden was Vice President Biden. Because there's a meme that has gone around that, like, Obama has had no scandals. I have a relative who posts that up periodically. And every time it comes on there, I'm like, and just, start telling the business. Of course, there were scandals during the Obama administration. And people joke, like, the only one he had was wearing that tan suit. And, because I guess people talked about his tan suit or something like that. I don't know. And so they make it seem like he was so perfect, he was so good, and he didn't do anything wrong. And people just, any sort of criticism, it was really annoying. Any sort of, like, real criticism that you would have about Obama, they would try to equate it to race. That you were racist against Obama, and that's why you say the things you do, don't like him, whatever. It was really, really dumb. But that's the way that they made it seem, and then would complain and so on. But Obama, he did have several different scandals. Of course, there was Benghazi. And I don't care if you think there was no there, and the but at the very least, we do know that they lied about the video that they show, that the reason why they attacked, and Hillary Clinton lied to the families and everyone there at the funerals of the fallen soldiers. So that's, of course, bad. But there was the Fast and Furious. There was that one. But the ones that the media actually did were like, out of all the things, this is a scandal. This is a scandal. Them spying, they did a lot of spying on people, but they were actually going after journalists. They used went after whistleblowers and more than like any other administration before. Like, people talked about Trump in the press. Obama and Biden were far worse with how they, went after people. And there were, events when they actually went after and targeted journalists. So, and then it turned out they were spying on us. And Obama, like, at first they were like, but then when it came out, Obama was just like, It's not a secret because Congress knows, and they're your representatives. So it doesn't matter that we're not listening to your phone calls. We're listening to your data. So nah. Like and trying to like play it off like it wasn't a big deal. They were also like spying on other world leaders, and was it Germany he had just went to when that news story broke? So it was a little awkward. I believe it was. I put everything pretty much together to assemble like a debunking of the no Obama scandals. And so I do have like all these clips together. So I will be doing that in a video addressing some of these things. Another big one was the IRS scandal. But the ones that people were actually the most upset about was the media one and the spying on different media people. Because of course they're like, you're coming after us, we're your people, we love you, how dare you? And when it's one of them, like, spying on you, oh boo-hoo. But like spying on us, how dare you? How dare you do that? So, this is totally believable. And it's believable really because if they are truly January 6th gave them a lot of excuses to do a lot of things that they want to do. And I have an article by Glenn Greenwald I'm going to get to. But I'm kind of moving to the new segment where I'm talking about critical race theory and this hearing on the, that they had in Congress and the military using it and sort of their mindset going into it and why they're, leaning on it now with the critical race theory, talking about the white rage and connecting it to January 6th, and Biden saying it's like the worst thing that has happened since like the Civil War, which is like so ridiculous. I mean, there's a Black Lives Matter fundraiser who actually did attack the Capitol. and it was, granted, people, like, the optics was bad, people going there, breaking, trespassing, breaking curfew, like the things that they're charging these people for, that they've done, that they want to hold them in jail for at least like 5 years, I think minimum is like what they're willing to bargain about. It's just some really ridiculous things that they want to do to these people. And granted, I've talked about it myself. I thought it was dumb you got played, people who went and so on, but some of these people just went in for selfie, fame. Some of these people, and that's really bad. Some of these people believe they could go in. I mean, they opened the doors, they were ushered in. The big thing about that day was that it was a security failure, and they're acting like Al-Qaeda came in or something like that. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. But I'm going to talk about that more in a second because it's a topic that this general talked about. But let me just go ahead and play what he said.
First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look, I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets. But I want to know. And it matters to our military and the discipline and cohesion of this military.
Okay. First of all, January 6th, again, If you were part of it, you went inside, you guys got played. If you did something illegal, terrible. I mean, if you did something illegal, I'm assuming you're probably still being held without bail, honestly. I was not fond of that day and what happened. I've talked about this. I'm not going to go too much into my feelings about that. However, people acting like Joe Biden saying it was the worst thing that's happened since the Civil War. Like, people were cleared out and they came in and did what they were supposed to do within, 2 hours or something like that? Like, it was not close to overthrowing our democracy or anything of the sort. A lot of people who even went there, they're talking about overthrowing our Constitution. Like, I went to events where people were talking about election integrity and things like that. Like, people weren't talking, but they were talking about using things that were in the grounds of the law that they could do. And you know what? Who else didn't accept the results of the election? There were Democrats during 2016 who would not accept the results of the election. And you know what happened while all this talk was going on about this stuff? There was someone who won a seat, and Nancy Pelosi just thought about not seating them because they wanted to just kind of recount things, or they were just kind of trying to take the win, and she was not seating an actual Republican who won because because someone on their team lost. And it was a close election, but it was clear, there was a clear winner, and she couldn't take it. So eventually they seated the person, but the Democrats, do we have amnesia about 2016? They never accepted that result, and ever since they were trying to undermine the president, cause division with Americans. They did so many things behind the scenes, even before Trump got in, when he was president-elect. The Obama administration, the Biden administration, getting together, spying on the Trump campaign. They acted like that wasn't a thing, and it was totally a thing. Biden was the one suggested prosecuting General Michael Flynn, for the Logan Act. This stuff was so shady. It was so shady that the FBI agents started to get job liability insurance, because they knew the stuff that they were doing to Trump was so shady, and it would come back, and they were afraid it would come back and blow on them. But apparently the system is so just nutty that there is no sort of justice for that kind of garbage. I was at the inauguration. I was at the ball. I remember what people did that day. There was riots and stuff that day. Someone set a limousine on fire. During the parade time and stuff. I remember actually being in line for the ball, and they were Antifa. I don't know if they were quite calling themselves at the time, but they were wackadoodles, obviously Antifa-ish. Because going on college campuses and doing crazy stuff, that was a thing that we're pretending didn't happen, leading all this crazy culture stuff that happened within last year. That stuff happened on college campuses with people trying to shut down speech. And there's one event with Mile Yiannopoulos was there, and people just kind of riot a bit, and people did crazy stuff when Ben Shapiro would go to places too. And people were like, oh, these people grow out of it. No, they didn't grow out of it. They became counselors and lawyers and journalists. And they're still being activists who are so extreme. But I was there with my sisters. We're all dolled up. We're in our high heels. We're in our dresses. And people are going around attacking people in line. But they were cowards. They wouldn't go and start to pick a fight with a man or something. They would go try to find a vulnerable, older white woman to pick on them. And so, being my sisters, we had to gear ourselves up in case there was some kind of altercation if someone tried to go after us. And of course, we didn't want to. We're all dolled up and stuff. But there's a saying, we're from Pontiac, nicknamed Yaktown for some reason. Pontiac, Yak, I guess, Pontiac. I guess I never just thought about it for 2 seconds. But it's Yaktown, don't back down. So we're if we gotta go, we just gotta go and do something. But they didn't end up attacking us, but people were doing that. And thank God we decided to go early, and that was my decision, and everyone owes me a thanks. It was a good thing I decided to leave the speech a little early, because by the time we got back to our hotel, they're like, are you okay? Because I heard all this stuff is going on. And we're like, yeah, we missed all that stuff, thank God. And then we saw some stuff coming in, but there was like crazier stuff later out in the streets and stuff with like Antifa and so on. So I am not crazy. I remember these things that happened. I wrote an article about that on like if you go to blacktnews.com, I have a link to it. It's a Detroit News article that I wrote about like the party of like people who did the crazy stuff, who couldn't accept the result of the election, and that like Democrats did that. They just did that. We're not going to pretend like all that stuff did not happen, or that businesses were like putting up boards and stuff preparing in case Biden lost, because they were expecting riots. People were clearly expecting riots. I think a lot of people thought that Trump was going to win. I mean, I know what the pollsters were saying. But people were bracing themselves. I thought Trump was going to win for sure with the numbers. And I'm sure there's people watching and typing like, no, he did win. I'm not even going to get into that today, but but people were prepared for Trump to win in a landslide and then there be violence. So January 6th, yes, bad. Was it the worst thing since the Civil War? Like, are you kidding me? You guys wrote, the Democrats did the terrible things that have happened since the Civil War. Like Biden spoke, how are you going to say what happened January 6th was the worst thing that happened, and then go and do, 100-day anniversaries of Oklahoma like massacre on Black Wall Street? How do you do that? How do you be so wildly inconsistent about that? Let me know what you think in the comments. But Biden, like if people wanted to get together and call some kind of like true government overthrow, because most of these, they were doing things within the grounds of what they thought was legal. Like maybe they were wrong, maybe they were right, but most of these people, they might have been misguided or however you believe. But and I'm not saying there weren't some people who wanted to just overthrow or like burn up the Constitution or something, but most people were trying to look into ways where they had options. And people thought they had options at least for a 2-day delay or whatever. And some of the senators and congressmen who were going to delay it a bit, I don't know if any of them, maybe a few of them thought there was some shady stuff, but they at least were willing to just like, well, let's have an investigation because maybe that'll make, the country come together and we can, Republicans can see like, hey, this was a fair process, and Democrats can be like, see, we told you it was a fair process, whatever the results were. But after what happened when everybody flooded in, they're like, nope, we just got to vote this through and certify it. If anything, it made the process go shoop. So that's a way a lot of people got played, for sure. But if they were willing, if that many people who came there wanted to overthrow the government, it wasn't even as violent as like a night of BLM random spawning after someone gets shot, and they're not random most of the time. I mean, there are people who be like, oh, but it's organized. It'll be organized. It's more organized than what you think. Chief Craig talked about that a bit, and they were able to stop some crazy stuff that kept trying to pop off in Detroit and stuff, but it never took hold because they were ready for these guys. But they are organized. But if they wanted to overthrow the government, they could not have, but they could have done a little something. And since Biden is like, we can nuke people, I guess things wouldn't go so well, since he's just ready to nuke the population of anyone who defies him. But I want to play something of Michael Eric Dyson when he defended General Mark Milley.
Reprehensible, but boy, did M Square, Mark Milley, General, push back in a poignant fashion. I've read Mao Zedong. I'm not a communist. I've read Karl Marx. I'm not a Marxist. If you read a comic book, are you a comic? The point is that this man says we should be open-minded. He encouraged them to study what critical race theory is. He knew its roots better than most of them. He knew it was rooted at Harvard Law School with the late, great Derek Bell. Of course, now Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. And all critical race theory is saying as a theory of law is that it's not about individual acts of bigotry or bias or racism. It is a systemic and institutional network that must be somehow discerned and dismantled.
Okay. Now, maybe you guys didn't catch how awful that was. Okay, so General Mark Milley, he said, we've read all these kind of different things and it hasn't affected me. Infected, I guess is a good word. It hasn't changed me. You know, I'm still who I am. And we could just study these things. We could just study these things. And he talked about civil rights, how civil rights move things forward. But civil rights is different than critical race theory, because civil rights is about a progression forward. And critical race theory is a look back. It's a look back at all these institutions. And he used the word dismantle, because there are people who support critical race theory who think all of our institutions are rooted in racism. All of them. I saw a video yesterday of a woman who said that fat phobia is rooted in racism. Yeah. Everything is rooted in racism. Everything they say is rooted in racism. So if you're talking about dismantling systems, I've done a couple videos like on TikTok on critical race theory, and it's amazing how people will go through this process. And I'm going to play a video that I did, like, if you haven't seen it yet, 5 stages of people defending critical race theory. Because at first they'll be like, no, it's not being taught in schools, it's just college level. And then they'll be upset that Republicans don't want it taught in schools. You know, and then they'll try to defend it and bargain it, like, we're just trying to teach people about history. But it's a theory. Right? It's not just here's the data, like the party switch myth, right? It's not looking at the data, who passed what laws and whatever. It's like trying to teach you how, with a specific lens of how to feel about certain things and look through certain things. So that's what critical race theory is. It's a worldview. And I find people who defend it already have, I mean, unless you don't know anything about it. There's some people who just hear things and they don't know much about it and they go along with it because of what they heard in the media. But there's people who know a little bit more about it and they defend it. But a lot of these people already have the worldview that it is, you know, it's trying to get people to believe. So Mike Dyson is one of those people. He was on a panel with Jordan Peterson, and he kept shifting the focus. Like, it was supposed to be like a totally different topic, but he kept bringing it to like racial things. And he called Jordan Peterson a mean, mad white man, like for no reason. and he's like, you got these bestsellers and all this other stuff, but you're still a mean, mad white man. It's like, okay, just Jordan Peterson has survived. And he's doing well, but it's not for lack of trying, for everyone trying to destroy him, for people taking his words out of context, accusing him of egregious things. He was just compared to the Red Skull by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's this famed American essayist that the leftists just love so much. But he has such a nihilistic view of the world, and why Marvel decided to allow him to write Captain America, I do not know. But they did a series, and I did a video of this on, you know, you can go check out my YouTube page, of comparing him to the Red Skull. And not just him, but also his fans, the people who follow him, are pretty much likened to Nazis. You know, or Hydra, you know, the stuff that they push in the Marvel MCU. So, and Jordan Peterson, he was just kind of amazed by it, and then he laughed about it, and then they, like, you know, raised money for charity, but what they did was like offensive and egregious. I mean, but Dyson, he called him a mean, mad white man, and it says racial things, but of course he can't be racist because they twisted the definition that you have to have all this sort of institutional power before you can be racist to someone. Oh, how convenient for you that you can get to disqualify yourself. But how much, like, fame do you have to have and prestige do you have to have to not be included into the possibility that you can be racist. Oh, but I guess you'll never reach that because you're black. How convenient for you. How convenient that only like white people can be racist. Even though I'm sure he has way more privilege and power than a poor white kid in Appalachia. I'm positive. I'm super positive. And, you know, he was at an event with, after the election, I think it was an NAACP event or something, and Ronna McDaniel, who's the chair of the Republican Party, she was a chair of the Michigan Republican Party at the time, and she was my boss, the boss of everyone who worked there. She was the chairwoman. So she was honored at the event, and he was a guest speaker. I think he was honored there too, or got an award, but he was at least the speaker there. And so he was talking about Republicans and white people are stupid and racism and all this other kind of garbage. I don't know if it was filmed or something, but my sister was there. And so some of the stuff my sister was saying that he was saying, knowing that Ronna was there and was supposed to be honored, was just uber disrespectful. Now, she got up there and she like showed out because she is very charismatic. She's very smart and she knows how to read the room. So she really played to her strengths, and she was really incredible. My sister was so impressed. I think that was at that time that was the most impressed my sister had been, you know, of Ronna at that point. Basically holding captive that room and charming them after this, you know, race baiter said a bunch of awful things. So I don't care for Mr. Dyson too much, but to my point, a lot of people who are pushing critical race theory like it's acceptable and like it's not so bad. What are you talking? It's just a worldview, because you already agree with the worldview. You already agree with the worldview. Benny Johnson, who he was with Turning Point, he does have a show on Newsmax, but he had a breaking story last week about in Iowa. They were trying to teach teachers, actually they had a forced training of a bunch of teachers, administrators, and so on, of critical race theory, of a bunch of different racial stuff. And they had this is a chart that they had when they're talking about overt white supremacy and what is socially unacceptable. And they have, look at the terms that they have on this chart, like stuff about the American immigration policy, Make America Great Again, you know, just all kinds of crazy stuff. If you deny white privilege, that is a form of white supremacy. If you say anything about post-racial, Columbus Day, for real. You might not like it, but for real, that's white supremacy. So those are the kind of things that they're teaching, and they also went through the definition of critical race theory. But again, it espouses this sort of like, you know, reiterates what Dyson was saying. Like civil rights is fine, it's cool, it's a thing that happened, right? But what we want to do is we want to look back, and Dyson used the term or the phrase like we want to dismantle it. You want to dismantle all of our institutions. Why can't we just do the civil rights thing and move forward? Like, why do you want to why do you want to dismantle it? Like, someone got mad at me, like, when I was arguing this stuff, and they're like, the Constitution wasn't written for brown people. The Constitution was written for the citizens of the U.S. Not all black people were, always citizens, but I am a citizen. All rights are applied and equal to me. I don't want to dismantle the Constitution. I think it's a pretty great document, and thank God it applies to me. But just because it wasn't at one point in time, I wasn't even alive when it was written, so it didn't always apply to me anyway. But it's available to me now. Like, America is a great country. Did everyone always live up to the greatness of America? No, of course not. Of course not. But it's still a great nation. The greatest one in the world. I'll fight you for it. Like, for real. Not like, adults don't usually tend to do that. But they want to dismantle this stuff. So when people talk about critical race theory in an introduction, it talks about how, unlike other academic disciplines, there is a level of activism to it. There's a level of activism to it. It's not just teaching your kids history. It's just not. So with this general is he just woke and Trump was upset? And it's like, well, he did like position him and stuff. And so, but so did Trump just miss the mark? It may not be that this man is just so woke, but you can see where DC is going. Like someone made that point I saw on Twitter. I can't think of who said it, but they're like, these are DC insiders and they see where people are going with this. And that's where the in crowd wants to go. And that's where a lot of people will go. Because if there's anything involving government, you cannot take everyone sincerely at their word with a lot of stuff. And Trump tried to go in and he was like, I'm going to change this, I'm going to do this and this and this. But there's a lot of people part of the bureaucracy machine that are just like, okay, you can try, but we're going to buck up against you. And you're just going to be here for 4 or 8 years, whatever it is going to be. And we're going to go about with our business. There's people who know that they outlast the person in charge because they have a whole system, a whole culture set up with like the DC elitists and stuff. So he can probably just read the room. Glenn Greenwald, he used to be over the Intercept, but he had to leave because they didn't like him criticizing Biden or wanted to talk about Hunter Biden or anything during the election. So they had a disagreement, fallout, whatever, he left because they were trying to control him. Isn't that crazy? Like a paper he started, he had to leave because it's a paper. They're supposed to talk about the news and truth and so on, and they couldn't stand him talking about Biden, and he had to leave so he could be honest about life. So there's this article that he wrote. It's really good. I posted it on my Facebook page. I'll also tweet it out at True Black Tea. So you guys can check this out. But he really went on to say that, he may sincerely believe all the stuff that he's talking about needing to learn it and so on. But there's something else to it there as well. Like ever since after World War II, we've really been into war. We've been really into war. And so Trump wasn't so much into that. He liked winning and blowing up things for sure. But but starting a whole new war, Trump did not do that. But there's a whole entire machine that, would like to do that. So he said the post-World War II military posture of the U.S. has been endless war. To enable that, there must always be an existential threat, a new and fresh enemy that can scare a large enough portion of the population with sufficient intensity to make them accept, even plead for greater military spending, surveillance powers, and continuation of permanent war footing. Starring in that war-justifying role, a villain have been the communist, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Russia, and an assortment of other fleeting foreign threats. According to the Pentagon, the U.S. intelligence community, and President Joe Biden, none of those is the greatest national security threat to the United States any longer. Isn't that crazy? Instead, they all say explicitly and in unison, the gravest menace to the American national security is now domestic in nature. Specifically, it is domestic extremists in general and far-right white supremacist groups in particular that now pose the greatest threat to the safety of the homeland and to the people who reside in it. I think he's made a really good point here that this is about feeding the war machine. Whether it's funding or whatnot, the lobbyist, whatever. So this is the route that Biden wants to go, and they're going to use that to get more power, get more funding, reasons to spy on you more, reasons to tamper your liberty more. They've chosen their villain, and they're running with it. They don't need to do, I don't know. I guess people expected they were going to do some crazy stuff in the Middle East as soon as he got in. They're just going to, Biden's kind of a lazy fellow, I suppose. He's tired. He doesn't want to do all that, so they're just going to, I guess, do all that here. So that's a good article. I would check that out, and I would follow him. I don't always agree with Glenn, but, he's been looking at infringement of liberty for a while, the war machine, and that was pretty much talking about the war on terror, all that other kind of stuff. That's where he got a lot of footing in. So see, he is covering this now. He does not want to see the government make excuses and just kind of keep growing in power. So I think that really does explain some of why you have him pushing back, and just the wokeness that's going around. They do really want to scare people, to make people believe that white supremacy is the reason why so much is wrong. And Trump was their face that they kept painting as the cancer that was pushing this stuff. Like, they even still say it now. Like, they blame the rise in Asian hate crimes on Trump. Go look at the demographics of people who attack Asians, and go look at the voting records of that particular ethnic group, and tell me, do you think that are those MAGA people? Because they're not. They are not. And even before that, this particular group, it's black people, by the way. They're the ones doing that prior to COVID and the China virus, as Trump would say, and all that stuff. So trying to blame it on Trump, it just doesn't make any sense. So we are kind of in a weird time, perilous times about that. I want to play this video that I did on TikTok about the stages of critical race theory. And by the way, this is all based on real conversations that I've heard, real stuff to form this. This is not like out of thin air. This is go through dealing with people in their comments or viewing, them on the media, and even like politicians when they talk about critical race theory. So if you haven't seen, I did post this on YouTube. It's on my TikTok. It's on my Facebook page. So you can find this video and share it around. Please share it around, because I do think humor is a good way to show the ridiculousness of some of these people. And it is a tool to enlighten people on how utterly ridiculous are. So maybe this is a way that we can also push back.
Critical race theory is not Marxism. It's not being taught in our schools. It is a legal theory. These Republicans only want to ban critical race theory because they're racist! Look, we only want kids to learn about proper history. Civil rights is fine, I guess, and moving forward is okay, but how can we really heal if we don't look at every single institution and realize every single one is built upon racism? Why would you let me destroy everything you love? George Floyd didn't sacrifice his life for justice so he could pick out a few bad apples. Police officers are modern-day slave catchers. Who cares if you have freedom of speech and can use guns? The Constitution wasn't made for brown people. Capitalism is evil. Forces people into voluntary labor. I'm a communist.
Yeah, so that's the video. That's the one I'm like uber proud of that I did over the weekend. And there's this one, I mean, a lot of people are just silly when I argue with them or debate them, I guess, but there's this one person just really going at it, and they're like, how is it Marxist? But they were defending Marxism and stuff too at the same time, and we're like, it's not hard. Look up critical theory, and then you will find out the connection to Marxism. It's that's critical race theory. Just remove race. It's critical theory, right? And critical theory is based in Marxism. There is a direct connection to that. And so but they literally wanted to go on a website, criticalracetheory.com or something, and be like, this is all leading to communism. They wanted a sentence like that, just read between the lines, man. But at the same time, they would just sort of defend it, well, if we need to destroy the institutions because people are disproportionately affected by that, is that such a wrong thing? This person said some racial slurs toward me and other stuff. So eventually I did do an address video or two toward them. And then I was like, I'm not addressing you anymore. And then they kept adding me at different stuff. So I ended up blocking them. And then they started a new profile. And then I blocked that one. And then they started a new profile. So it's very weird, stalkerish, I guess. Very, very odd. But, he's part of the craziness of why I did that video. But the sacrifice your life for justice, Nancy Pelosi said that. Nancy Pelosi said, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice. She sure did. That is crazy. That is crazy. That is crazy. So now we're on the subject of TikTok. I do want to talk about this person, Oliver Niehaus. So I would play this video and talk about what I rebutted, and then I'm going to go into the scandal a little bit. I'm going to try to go through this quickly. I did talk about this on Let's TikTok About It. Those of you who don't know, every Saturday at 7:30 Eastern Time, PM, I do a show, usually with a guest, and we go over TikTok videos, and we talk about what's funny, what's not, and or like political stuff, like we talk about religious stuff, well, just a huge range. It'll be like random stuff, but we're going through TikTok videos about an hour long usually, but if we're having good conversations and stuff, it'll go longer. Like I did one with This Is Savvy, who is just like all over the place. I saw her on Fox News like not too long ago, because she's just, her TikTok page is amazing, and I've done with other people. I'll have it with some local people. I have a candidate who's I'm gonna do it with pretty soon, so that'll be really interesting. So if you haven't watched it, set your reminder for Saturday nights at 7 p.m. And if I can't do it live, I usually will try to set a premiere video, so it will play like it's live, and we can still like comment and stuff, but I won't be responding to your comments, but I'll be like in the comment section usually. I did do it twice in a row when it wasn't live because I had like events and stuff to go to, but normally it will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, and if there's guests that you think that should come on the show, you can get recommendations and have people reach out to me. But we have a really great time. So I'm going to play him really quickly.
No, why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
All right, Ben Shapiro's out here making false equivalencies out the wazoo, debating high schoolers who don't know what they're talking about to make himself feel better. And this just proves Ben's lack of knowledge of gender as a concept. Ben is trying to say, oh, if I can identify as a different gender, then why can't I identify as a different age? Well, Ben, it's almost like the concepts of age and gender are fundamentally different. Age is an objective measurement of how long you've been around on this earth. Age is a measurement of time. Gender is not. And what Ben disingenuously did is he conflated sex and gender. No one is arguing that a transgender person changes their chromosomal structure when they identify as a different gender. So no, gender by no means is an objective measurement of anything. It is something that we societally construct. A more accurate comparison to changing your gender would be changing your name. It's just a label you prefer to identify with. But of course that's too nuanced for Ben Shapiro to ever understand.
So his whole account is gone now because he was fooling around with girls who are like 14, 13 years old. Yeah. So, and that happened like yesterday where he just deleted all of his stuff because all this started to come out. Like, it's now a flood now that people know this information, but it was like leaking and now he's gone. So I did not know about all the other accusations and stuff. I just did a video responding to that video. So obviously that wasn't my response video. I'll just tell you what I said, but you can go follow me on my TikTok. It's at Black T News on TikTok. But first point, so he's like 18. That lady in the video that happened like about 4 years ago, she was 22 in that video. It was at a college. So he might have only seen, this is a super viral video of Ben Shapiro. It's one of his most famous. It may even be more famous than the Zoe Tur video. I'm not sure. But it's very, very famous for one of his own videos. That lady was 22 years old in that video. So, and it was at a college. And he's not going to go debate like high schoolers to just dunk on them. He had a lecture. There's a Q&A. She went up there. They had a conversation. It's really just that simple. But I hate it when there'll be these younger people, and a lot of people think I'm younger than I am on the like people are like, oh, I have such faith for humanity because you're so young and smart. And I'm like, how old do you think I am? I'm 32. And they're like, oh my gosh. And they're shocked that I'm 32. But there's kids who are like 18, 20, 22, who may have big accounts who are talking about these positions. And, but they'll say things like, oh, we're debating high schoolers and stuff like that. It's like, first of all, this woman was older than you are. And I don't care. Like, if you want to come play with the big boys You got to gird up your loins and shut up and get in the ring. If you're going to get punched in the face and then try to cry about it, then Junior, you need to stay in the sandbox and let the grown-ups finish having a conversation. Like, there was one person who left some, who was debating, said some dumb stuff on a video that I did. And so I did a video responding to them. And so people were responding to him and responding in the video. And so, but then this person went on their own page. It was a very small account. And they would be like, well, tell me that you make conservatives mad, and like stuff like troll stuff like that. But then he'd come back and keep like engaging with people. And so eventually he messaged me on like another video, and he's like, tell them to stop. This has been going on for weeks. And I'm like, why did you make a video about people commenting, and why do you keep commenting? He's like, well, like, it's been weeks. And I'm like, and then he called me crazy. I'm like, you just called me crazy like 5 seconds ago. And he's like, well, you are crazy. I'm like, good luck. Good luck. And I did another video. I didn't tag him, but I'm like, there's someone who I've been engaging, you know, who responded on something, and he's been going back and forth. And I just kind of explained the situation very quickly. And I'm like, look, you have to be concerned about what you post, because people are going to respond. The app is made for people to respond. They can duet your video like it plays, and you can see them reacting to it. You can stitch it where like a part of it will play and then you do a response. You can download people's videos, like, and if you don't if you take off that feature, people will screen record your video. Like if you comment, there's a feature on TikTok where you can do, I love this feature, where you can do a video response to the comment. They can't do video response to your comments, but if it's on your page, you can do it to them. Like, it's like the policies are just really crazy about how strict they are, because it's clearly an app made for clapbacks. It just is. As a matter of fact, I was complaining to someone like an hour ago. I'm like, I do this other content that I think is nice or whatever, but my fans want to see me clap back. That's what gets the clicks. I don't clap back for the clips, but that's what they love. That's what the app is like built for. So if you can't just say, I'm a kid, how dare you? And the kid, he was like 14. But I'm like, you can't say all this random crap to adults and then just cry about your age. Like, delete your comments. You can apologize. You can make your account private, or just stop. Like, cut the notifications, or get a new account or whatever. But just like, why did you put yourself in this corner and you keep engaging, and then you're just rude anyway? So I don't buy that, like, oh, Ben Shapiro, or still talk about Steven Crowder because he goes on college campuses. Like, if someone doesn't go there and confront these people and teach them to have a conversation to sort of think through these thoughts, they're going to keep getting indoctrinated, and we're going to keep having these problems where these people who are totally intolerant just keep growing up to be activists who will go throw a firebomb and then go practice law, which that's like actually a thing that like happened. A Molotov cocktail. There was like these 2 lawyers who got caught throwing it during like the BLM riot. So if you don't do something to confront these people while they're young, they're just gonna grow up, get a job, and then and be even more insufferable because now they have like some sort of power in their career. So go find the minds while they're malleable, where you can mold them a bit or challenge them. Because when you get older, it is very hard to get out of your ways. Like, have you ever argued with someone who's like 50 and above? Very hard to move them, right? So you got to try to have those conversations when people are young, especially where they might have had different views, and then they and they have these professors and they start indoctrinating with all this sort of stuff. So yes, they should be on these college campuses talking to people, and you don't have to go up to the Q&A. You don't have to sit down in Steven Crowder's chair and have these conversations. You know, they're just trying to have a conversation, and they're welcome there, so they keep doing them. So that's free will and all that kind of stuff, but I also addressed the gender stuff in my reply of, you know, for one example, he didn't want to compare age and gender, but I mean, age and sex, but he did that himself. And it's funny, he's talking about age and stuff. And I mean, not funny, but it's like ironic that he got caught with like 14, 15-year-olds and stuff. At the time, it's amazing. I think one reason why the video is doing so well that I did is obviously the timing, you know, is like impeccable. Because I don't know much about this creator. I've just seen him say like a couple different dumb things and people reply to them. But one thing that did come out in his screenshots, TikTok has this creator fund where, I mean, if they're big creators, they can be in the fund, and if people watch their stuff, I guess they get a collective of money or something like that. I'm fairly new to TikTok, so I'm not entirely sure. But he had someone release a screenshot of him talking about it, and people were like, "Why'd you make that rant about capitalism?" And then he's like, to be honest, I'm in this creators fund. I need to pay my rent and I want X amount of money, and that stuff gets clicks. So it's probably, I mean, of course there are people who say stuff because it's performative and they want the clicks and stuff, but that's why some of these people don't have it. Like, I wonder how many that is the case where so many people, especially these young people, who just want some kind of click, and they don't have like a strong worldview. Like, I don't want to discourage young people from talking and debating, because I feel like I was a pretty smart person at 18, 22, and so on. And I had, obviously not as much information and knowledge, but I was pretty strong in my worldview and have been since I was, like 12. But as I grow older, like my opinions change on certain things. I'm not totally settled on some things. But what I do talk about, I do like to be knowledgeable about, so I can at least debate it and defend my position in some regard. But there's some of these people who get out and just spew out talking points that they hear, and that's why some of their reasoning is so bad. So I wonder how many people are like a part of that culture. But again, to the age thing, he said, that age is a measurement of time, and he's saying it's totally objective. There's different cultures that start counting your birthdays at different parts of your life. Like, you're 1 year old, you're born, and then a year later you're one. And in South Korea, and forgive me because I researched this like a year and a half ago or maybe something when I was writing a book, but I believe it's when you were born, that is when you are one. So so even that's a bit subjective. And I'm not going to go into all my gender stuff, but obviously I thought all of his gender stuff was also wrong as well. But I did want to bring him up, and he has deleted all of his stuff. But I really wanted to talk about it because you got to realize there's some of these people, and he had a big platform. He had like 700 and something followers, 700 and some thousand followers, excuse me. But some of these people just say stuff for clicks, and they admire these people, they follow them, and they totally don't believe their worldview. And it's just crazy. It's just really crazy at this point. So I'm going to begin to close it out, but before you go, please visit blacktnews.com. Check out content that I have on the website. If you would like to support, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate, or you can do so with that ticker tape that's scrolling across the screen. I have a really, really good idea. If you have not seen my music video that I did, I only put it on YouTube. But I took the song, Take a Bow from Rihanna, and I did it about white liberals and how they keep apologizing. It's really, really funny. I have some great clips of like Democrat pandering in it. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out and share it. Please share it. But I have another really, really good music video idea. It's going to cost me a little bit of money to do some stuff. So if that's something like, if you want to support, you can go to blacktnews.com, drop a donation, or you can do so via the Cash App or the PayPal. I appreciate you guys and everything that you do. It means the world to me. That you're watching and sharing means the world to me too. But if you can donate, I'd like for you to do that too. So thank you. I'm really excited about this concept and having it out. Let's just say, what's another music video idea? And it's about the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. And, it has a lot of great potential. I don't want to spoil it more than that, but I want to do it sooner than later because I'm really excited about that. There's other music video ideas that I have, but this one is going to be the next one that I'm going to do. So if you want to support, you can support that way. Please, I thank you guys, but do help out Black Tea News if you want to make sure that we keep having content. There are expenses related, to doing what I'm doing, and if you want to support, I really appreciate your support, and I do need your support. So thank you guys. Also go to the website, check out some of the merchandise that I have, on blacktnews.com. these cool goat shirts, defeat, Joe Biden, denounce white supremacy, which is like hilarious right now because of this, all the stuff that they're spewing. So that would be a really good shirt to have. So you can get that one and other ones. I Am Not the Victim You're Looking For is a great one. And you can check out, books that I've written and so on. So please check out my stuff. And earlier, if you did not see it and you're just kind of here at this point and didn't see all this stuff before, I did have a lot of stuff for my baby sister. Her birthday was last week. Please check out her website. Like, you can go get a print of Trump or Abraham Lincoln, or just, Ronald Reagan. If a leftist friend, the Obama one, just check out her stuff, buy some paintings. I know there's a friend of ours who buys her teeny paintings and they give it to like friends and coworkers and so on. And people just really love them. They're really cute to put on your desk. But please support my baby sister. I love her tremendously. My family is really supportive, so supportive of what I do. And we are all like, they're not all like super political like I am, but man, my dad is though. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. When I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, my dad would call me like when I arrived, middle of the day, and when I left, and he'd always want to know all about my day. And like, I can't literally tell you everything that has happened, but like we could talk about the news or something. But he's really into it. But my family, we are pretty political, and she's been. People who are local probably met Tina on occasion. So just go ahead and also support her too. So I just want to give her a shout out because it was her birthday, and I do love her tremendously, and she's very, very talented. So lastly, I do want to let you guys know what is going on tomorrow. I'm bringing on a guest to talk about a very important topic. I'm of the belief that women do not truly have informed consent when they have abortions. Because of, whether it's like the blatant lies that someone would tell them, like a baby won't feel pain and other stuff like that. But just even things like, you can tell by some of the arguments that people have when they defend it. I mean, cluster of cells, parasite, like how people put it and just kind of disassociate with all sort of life. Even how they say it's a fetus, as if that doesn't simply mean an unborn human baby. So, I mean, people are so far removed from the reality of what is happening to justify it. And so I wanted to talk about that. And so tomorrow I am actually having on a good friend of mine. She just wrote a book. I helped her with her book. And I learned a lot of things that I did not know until I started going through it. And she told her testimony of a lot of different things, but she did in the past have an abortion. And she said the Lord has healed her of those wounds, but she's willing to come on and talk about that, because just talking to her about what she went through and reading it on the page about how she had an abortion, the pain that she went through when she had to have the surgery. It was a 2-day procedure. She was unaware of how much pain that she would be in, and how her body still sort of trembles a bit. She said when people talk about like abortions and miscarriages, her body still like physically like does something. Like it's amazing. And so and tragic, but I'm glad that she's willing to have that conversation. So I'm going to be starting it at 3:00 tomorrow, my live. I would really appreciate it if you spread the word, if you make sure that you're getting the notifications on Facebook, on YouTube, and that you share it around. It is a very important topic. I thank her tremendously for planning to come on and talk about this, because, and we had never really talked about this before. Even after I read it, I didn't really talk to her about it. So this was like calling her on the way. I was like, are you willing to do this? And she said, it is important for women to know how that your body is different, that it changes, and what she experienced, she was not prepared for, and people need to know. So please tune in tomorrow for that in-depth conversation, because it is extraordinarily important. So I'm very excited. I'm humbled. She was like, oh, it's an honor to come on. I'm humbled that she will come on to talk about this experience, because it is important, because a lot of people just try to disassociate themselves and disregard the life of the child, the humanity of the child, to really cope with what has happened. So I'm so glad that she's going to come on and do that. I'm extraordinarily excited about tomorrow. So please tune into Black Tea News. I'll be streaming it probably on multiple pages, not mine, but some other ones. I want to talk to some people. I'm going to have it out there. I really want people to be aware of this episode. So please share it and tell someone about it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you may be watching. We're about to end it, but go ahead and you can still share it and tell people to watch it. We talked about some pretty important things on this particular episode. Make sure that you're visiting Black Tea News. And, oh gosh, I just forgot. There was like a few things that I didn't mention. I'll have to mention them tomorrow because it's so weird. There's some weird things that I didn't get to today. There's just so much to get to. There's so much to get to. But make sure that you are tuning in tomorrow because it's going to be a great thing. So I just want to close with a quote. I want to end every show with a quote now. And so Gina Carano posted this quote from Thomas Sowell. Freedom has cost too much blood and agony to be relinquished at the cheap price of rhetoric. That's a great quote from Thomas Sowell, shared from a great person, Gina Carano. When I did a video about Gina Carano, that was like my first one on the YouTube channel, my Black Tea News, that like made me get like 100 subscribers like overnight. So what he did to her, they did her dirty. But we've talked about that before. So I will not delay. I will not do the 5 closings of what preachers do. I am a preacher, and I'm going to end it today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless you, and thank you for being part of the conversation.